The video begins with an establishing shot of a famous painting hanging alone on a wall of white.
The camera is handheld, a feature divulged by its framing's subtle waiver, rather informal given the context of the forthcoming recorded act.
And though the footage bears no title, no credits, many will immediately recognize its featured image as Woman 3, a work of oil on canvas composed by Willem de Kooning, according to records, in 1953.
The camera tracks the figures as they carry the painting across the room, revealing the edges of a much wider, empty space, buttressed on its far end by a small, formal audience seated together on silver bleachers. 6 men and 6 women, each dressed in stately fashion.
These spectators' faces have each been digitally obscured, leaving only a warble of busy pixels where their features might have named them.
Together they look on, calm as lambs, as the painting is placed face up before them upon a small raised platform, like a patient, of no nature to do anything but wait, a condition matching ours, the viewers, as what we are seeing is in the past already happened, including all as yet to come.
And then, again, this time from behind and to the left of the camera, a human figure appears on screen.
This one, though, unlike the others, is wearing a chrome-lined pack strapped to its back, from which a long, slim chrome nozzle extends to be wielded by the wearer, and then from that, the bright eye of a blue node of focused flame.
The figure proceeds to apply then the ember of the burning to the work.
The bright and rising buds of fire suggest some wilder version of the painting, unlock from within it some charisma of a kind that could once have been born from a culture's total fear of its creator.
The flame is thin and wide and asks no questions.
The destruction is beautiful itself, too. Some viewers will argue in its own way.
Alice Knott, unlike so much else, is not at all difficult to find.
It was she who had called the cops and the reporters in herself, amid the escalating rhythm of would-be scandal. She alone who stood out on the front step of her house to meet and greet them in waning daylight on a Tuesday, waving around a tumbler most would assume is filled with booze, given her demeanor, though Alice hasn't had a drink in years. Not that she still doesn't feel drunk most days, half asleep and half dissolved.
Not that she had done it, the destruction, or had anything to do with it. Alice hadn't done a thing.
The true invaders of her home, whoever they were, had taken 8 works, a fact she discovered under the same shade of disbelief as anybody else.
Whoever had broken in had done so in pursuit not of simple monetary value, but of the irreplaceable.
Alice watches herself from inside herself perform for the police and the reporters, the vortex at the center of HI.
Anyway, it was really, in the scheme of everything, a minor work. Alice finds herself explaining to the cameras, off the cuff. The goddamn de Kooning, I mean, in my opinion.
And the same goes for you and me. Minor works, each and every one of us. Shits in a blender. Get it?
She's positively beaming by now, eating up the opportunity between spectacle and spectator, really flushing.
Would you just get a load of your all's face? She scoffs, holding her glass like a weapon.
Like this is news now? Actual news?
At least 2 of those assembled are writing down her every word she sees, or at least writing something, transcribing every passing moment into false form.
She knew at least that she'd had a mother and father once, as must any person, though as the years passed, she found more and more often that she could not recall so much about the way they were, as if she had intentionally foregone the context amid the many modes of open torment she associated with their presence.
One day, just like that, her father had disappeared, or rather, the man who had so far been her father ceased to exist as she had known him,
Even in the light of the shallow remains of the past Alice retained and called her own, in that following the dark transition, she was the only one who seemed to recognize a change.
From room to room on the first day after, Alice came into each space finding not only nothing left of him where it had always been before, but even amendments applied in the shaping of the places once all his.
Such as no set of hammers in the closet where he had kept his hammers, but instead board games she could never remember how to play, no freezer full of private beef which he had hunted down himself and brought home and wrapped in plastic for some future meal that never seemed to come, but now branded frozen foodstuffs from corporations.
It was around this time, aged 11, or was it 9, that Alice had begun to teach herself to drink. Initially inspired, after a few pulls of the dark bottles the passed out people left all over their increasingly crowded home.
The longer she spent in the temporary corridors of medication, the more natural the relief seemed, as if no brain were ever meant to go untampered in the name of taking reign over the illusion of one's life.
Nothing could ever need to be the same.
The morning after Alice's media debut, according to subsequent reports at the Museum of Contemporary Art Chicago, a middle-aged man lifts up a screen displaying a looping presentation of Anne Hamilton's video Aleph and throws it as hard as he can into Richard Tuttle's purple octagonal, causing a large dent in the painting's pale pink canvas while leaving the display screen relatively unharmed.
I can't say what it was, states Dina Host, mother of two, who throws her body through an installation of Duchamp's The Bride Stripped Bare by her bachelors even, the large glass.
I don't even know why I decided to go to the museum today, except it was like there was this silence within me, coating my insides, in a way that made me want to do anything but be exactly what I am. It was as if my whole life had passed right underneath my nose, and it was blank.
Breaking shit is cool, said her teen son with the military haircut. I don't like art, but I like things that are broken, or maybe broken later.
Alice can't blink, she finds, has not been blinking.
Her heart, meanwhile, feels soft and strangled in her own chest, darker and thicker than it must just have been, pronounced with so many living layers of glaze, it hardly still feels able to breathe.
If she doesn't think about her passing feelings outright, with her eyes closed and breath held, she has no beat in there at all, feels not actually alive beyond the ongoing faculties she can't stop seeing, thinking, breathing under the thumb of. Not a law, but an inherent manifestation of human life that one day soon will cease to be. As where in any given instant there are so many knives and guns and ropes and pills, not to mention high-story windows and long stairwells and bridges and canyons and cars to step out in front of and persons to piss off and wrong places to end up in at the right time.
Alice turns the machine off and stands.
From here, the world is open wide. Rooms as she recalls them now connect back into other rooms as long they should, according to their architect's intent, in no way attendant to the emotional interpretation of a suddenly hyper-suspicious Alice, at this point in her life, smashed no longer on gin and water, but on her impression of the present as an ongoing event, suspended between the conflicting impressions of isolation and surveillance at the same time, espoused as much by her ongoing presence in the news as her renewed awareness of the unseen network of security cameras she herself had ordered installed so long ago she can't remember when or even why, having never until the robbery seen a need, after years and years of tapes of uneventful footage fed into the upkeep of some corporate presence she'd hired to install and oversee, called with a name she can't remember from any other brand, and yet to whom she'd supplied all the necessary access and permissions to her life, as it were, based on a single advertisement that somehow appeared on her radar amid so many.
What did they know that she would never?
She cannot remember how to live.